What's the greatest moment in sports history? What makes a moment live in your memory forever? And who are the best athletes you've ever seen play? It's your call on sports' greatest moments, and it all starts right now. Hi there, everyone. It's great to have you along. I'm Lynn Doyle. If you're a sports fan like me, I'm sure that there are some great moments that live in your memory no matter how much time has passed since they first occurred. For me, a longtime Duke fan, it's the turnaround jump shot by Christian Laettner at the buzzer to put the Blue Devils in the Final Four. Now, that was back in 1992, but I remember it like it was yesterday. I was absolutely sure Duke was out of it, but with that shot, well, as they say, the rest is history. For others, it might be seeing a postseason no-hitter pitched like the one Roy Halladay of the Phillies did just recently. Or if you go back in time a little bit, maybe you were lucky enough to see or hear about Don Larsen's perfect game. That was in 1956, before I was even born. A lot of people look at a team event like the Broad Street Bullies unexpectedly winning the Stanley Cup, or the U.S. hockey team winning an improbable gold medal back in 1980. We're going to talk about all of that and anything else that comes to mind for you as we take a look back at some of the events that have made sports history. Of course, as always, we invite you to join in with your opinion as well. Here's what I want you to ponder. What is the greatest moment in sports in your opinion? Or maybe you have to narrow it down to the top 5. And what makes those moments so memorable? Speaking of 5, who are your top 5 athletes of all time? If you want to join in, you know how it works. You can email me directly at lynn@lynndoyle.net. You can also find us on Facebook, MySpace, or YouTube and share your opinions there. We're going to share your thoughts in just a moment, but first let's find out what our panel thinks. It's a good one today, guys. It includes Neil Hartman, who, as you know, is an anchor for Comcast Sportsnet, Philadelphia Sports Night. He's been covering sports for over 20 years. Gary Cobb's back with us. He's an old friend of the show. You know him. He's a former NFL player who is now a host for Sports Radio 610 WIP. That's right here in Philadelphia. Michael Bradley joins us. He's a sports writer and an analyst for PhillyMag.com and 97.5 The Fanatic. And rounding out the panel, Kevin Scholla. He's a sports anchor for CBS KYW News Radio, as well as a sports announcer for Villanova basketball. He's been a voice in broadcasting for more than a decade. And I don't know that I'll be able to get a word in edgewise here with you guys. So good to see you all. Let's start with the definition of what makes a great sports moment.
Well, I think it's something that you want to talk about the minute you get home and the next day by the water cooler. I think it's something that impacts your life, impacts the city's life, and something that you'll be talking about for years to come. You know, I think it's very hard to come with just one or even 5 greatest sports moments. It's difficult. Well,
of course, with a group like this, you guys have all different opinions and different experiences. But I have to chuckle and share a story with me and Neil, because you heard me say that my #1 sports moment was when Duke won to get into the Final Four. You have a good memory of that day, too.
Well, yeah, it's not a pleasant memory because in 1992, I'm a big college basketball fan. I went to see Duke practice that week, and then that Saturday, my wife's niece had a wedding that day, so I had to go to the wedding on Long Island, and I go to the wedding, I get out of the wedding, and I hear on the radio, the greatest finish in the history of sports. And I go, great, I missed this game. And then a few years later, they get divorced, so the wedding was for naught. So just my luck. Yes.
I had a similar moment like that. Not only did I have to go to a party that I didn't want to go to with people that I didn't really like, but when I came out, I found out that Mike Tyson had been knocked out. And I was like, are you kidding me? They didn't have the fight on or anything at the party, so that was a similar moment.
By the way, it's interesting because you say that, and I think of where I was when that happened, right? That's what we also do.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. There has to be some history to it, and it has to be something that will live on. And sometimes you can't deem something a great moment until it's past the test of time for a couple of decades.
And it's funny because Kevin said earlier that it's really tough to pick a greatest moment. You could pick maybe one for a particular sport, but then to combine them all and say, okay, what's the all-time best moment? Everybody's going to have a different perspective on it.
And even then, to whittle it down to sports, if we just did NFL today or MLB or what have you, it would still be tough. And the Tyson example is funny because some people didn't even know that fight was happening that night. You know, Buster who?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, hey, Tyson just lost. You thought you were getting a prank phone call.
Yeah, and that took all about, what, 19 seconds?
But what about him biting on Evander's ear? I mean, how many, you see a heavyweight champion biting on a guy's ear, you know? But I think sports, huge events, transcend sports. They become bigger than life. They involve countries. They involve politics. They'll go on and involve the culture. And they just transcend sports, and they're bigger than life. And I think because of the media, I think maybe now they might be even bigger than somewhere in the past.
Really, that's interesting that you would say that, because I thought perhaps the ones earlier, you know, when we didn't get to see it as it happened, may have lived in our minds, you know, in a bigger way than watching it 24/7 right now. I mean, the minute something happens, we see it again,
and
ad nauseum.
But yeah, also the things that happen now might not have the same historical perspective, because a lot of the great moments also have more to them than just somebody beat somebody else.
Yeah, but Don Larson's perfect game, you know. You know, we're going off, you know, this like 30-second film clip of, you know, everyone jumping on top of each other.
But still, it's the only time it's happened.
The only time. But I'm saying that that moment is probably, I think, almost greater because we didn't see it. You know, if you haven't seen it, it's mythical. Yeah. That's a great way to put it.
And I think that there is some truth to that, because I know you talk about baseball, boxing, which was so huge in the years where you just had radio, that people had to envision what was happening. So it became bigger than life, and to see whole communities in the nation caught up in this one game and nobody could really see it, you're just trying to picture it, that I think it just might even be bigger.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about what defines a great sports moment. We want to know what you think about that, so go ahead and email me. You can tell me what you think the greatest sports moment is, and you can also tell us what makes it memorable in your mind. I'm going to give the guys an opportunity to kind of compare their notes. They don't know what the other guy's top 5 is. So we're going to find out if there's some similarities or if they're completely different. Let me start with Neil. I know it was tough for you to pick 5. How did you first narrow it down and determine what you would select?
The way I did it is, it's my list. So it's my moments, great sports moments, that I think would also be classified as a great sports moment. But they have an impact on my life and my interest in sports. So that's how I came up with my list.
Okay, so it's your call. What are the top 5
So
sports?
This hit he had back in Little League, remember that?
That's number 1. And the hit I had the following year is number 2.
The game winner.
And then the dunk that I dreamed about is number 3. That's right. That's what it is. And I'll be shocked. I'll be shocked if the panels here, we all don't say number 1 is when the United States won in 1980 in hockey. It is now I have a different perspective than everybody else.
Right.
I was there.
Okay.
I was right next to Al Michaels.
There were 400,000 people.
I was right next to Al Michaels but I was actually there. Right next to Al Michaels. I was a production assistant for ABC Sports. And for the Miracle on Ice, the United States beat the Russians 4-3. Then they go on to beat Finland. And I was there for 3 weeks, and I worked the hockey venue that year. And we had Ty Babylonia and Randy Gardner was a big story in ice and figure skating. And then the hockey event, I was there for every one of the games. And I was not a hockey fan going into Lake Placid that year, but I left being a huge hockey fan.
And that, of course, was a series of games that made Al Michaels' career.
It did, it did.
Because he was one of the few guys who knew anything about hockey at the time.
But I think he'd only done one hockey game.
He didn't know it. He wasn't a hockey guy. He just happened to be assigned to it. And the fact that he came up with that tagline, "Do you believe in miracles? Yes," defined him and propelled him.
Now, your number 2 selection here is the Dream Team, which is funny because it's the complete opposite of the U.S. hockey team.
It is, but I think it changed the way we look at team sports. It's the greatest team ever assembled.
Okay.
If you look at 10 of the 12 players were named among the 50 greatest players in the history of the NBA. In 1996, so this is in 1992 when we had the Dream Team, the first Dream Team, the real Dream Team. Now they have all these Dream Teams.
Marketing.
Pure marketing.
It was.
Okay,
it was to open foreign markets.
Here's how good,
and it's worked.
Here's how good that team was. You love Christian Laettner, okay?
I do.
He was a great college player, very marginal NBA player.
He was the ball boy.
Shaquille O'Neal missed out on that team so that Christian Laettner could be on the team.
Okay. And now Shaquille O'Neal can do Comcast commercials. So we love him. Okay, we have to take a quick break. We're going to find out the rest of Neil's list and see what the other guys think about his selections, and then they'll reveal theirs as well. What about you? What's at the top of your list of all-time great plays? You'll get a chance to weigh in when we return.